Hi, I'm Brian Martin,
And I'm Jennifer Martin.
and welcome to Powerful Loving Kindness Naturally. It's our podcast where we tap into your essential loving kind nature that's already resident inside of you to help you become more aware of it so that you can capitalize on all the goodness that comes from being a loving kind person. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
And I'm excited because we've been working through the book, The Home Model.
Mhm.
And we're going to do a quick summary of what we talked about on the L,
The L of love,
the
L-O-V-E,
VE.
right?
And the L stands for little things.
Uh-huh.
And we talked about how there were three types of little things.
Yes, there are. The first
There's,
one is loving kind thoughts. And that means I control my thoughts about myself and about you so that every single thought that I have is loving and kind. I like to be that kind of a person because it has really wonderful benefits for myself, the way that I think about myself, but it also helps the people that I'm with to feel more comfortable with me because they can sense, something. So hopefully it's love and kindness that they sense. And then the other thing is that they can recognize that I see the loving kindness that's inside of them. Sometimes I see it and they don't see it. But loving thoughts is the first thing.
and then the second one is loving words.
Loving kind words, and they're real simple words like "Hi, I love you,"
Or thank you.
or "Good morning," or "I think that's great."
Those are kind, loving words.
Yeah, there's a million of them, and we should learn how to use them. When we use loving kind words, we bring a higher level of optimism and acceptance and goodness into our relationships and into our language.
Well, optimism can also convey a portion of hope. And I think hope is another good word there, that loving, kind words can bring hope to people.
Absolutely.
And then the third one is loving, kind actions.
And I think this is a very, very important piece that is so powerful, so meaningful that I really hope people will grasp this concept. In the book, I use an example of Pope Francis, who came to the U.S. in 2015, and in a dramatic act, he touched a boy who was having problems with his health and made a fundamental impact, a profound impact, and everybody who witnessed it, saw it, and experienced its life. And that has become for me to be like a metaphor of how important a wanted touch can be and what it can convey to people. So I think that's wonderful. And aside from the physical touch of holding somebody's hand or patting them on the back or just a gentle touch of one kind or another is the kiss. And a kiss is a powerful, powerful touch.
Yes, and only to be given when it's wanted or willingly received.
Yes.
I think, though, actions go far beyond touches and kisses. I think actions are also in the ways you make someone feel. And so being present with someone and letting them know I'm in this space with you right now and I'm listening is a really loving, kind action.
Super loving, super kind, because sometimes you don't say a word.
Right.
Sometimes there's no touch at all, but all that you're doing is just being present with somebody in a moment.
And so I want to make sure that actions aren't conveyed as just a touch or a kiss. Actions are so much and can be so many different things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, Brian, today we're going to be talking about the O in love,
Mhm.
which is the O stands for
Oxytocin. Oxytocin is a powerful body chemical that's used by your brain to to bring emotional connectedness to people. And it's typically when I think about it, I think about mothers and fathers and children and the close connection that they have with each other. And that is that oxytocin is really stimulated in that kind of a familial setting, and it makes it more pleasant to be with people when you have that kind of a feeling that's comes from a brain chemical.
so it's kind of a bonding feeling.
It's definitely a bonding feeling.
And I don't know that most people know when oxytocin is working in their body, do they?
That's true with just about every brain chemical that people have, and there's a bunch of them. Another important one is neuroepinephrine, or call it adrenaline also, which is a powerful, powerful brain chemical that energizes and gets people ready to fight or to flee. It's so powerful that people who are under the influence of adrenaline sometimes act as if they're like drunk and they can't rationalize, or which explains a lot about a lot of troubles that some couples have. Like maybe they're having an argument and they both get deeply involved in it, and for a moment or two they're feeling like they're battling against a wild bear, and and that flow of adrenaline comes in and it just takes over, and it's extremely powerful, and you can control adrenaline, and the way that you control it is with a breathing technique that's mentioned in the book.
I think I remember a time in our relationship. So here's the personal growth is our relationship. I think I used to kind of chase you around wanting to settle things right now. Nya, 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 you know? And I think I had to learn that that was my need to take care of something, but it didn't create a safe environment for either of us to work it out.
That's a really, really good point. 2 points. First of all, the power of the brain chemical that was affecting you or anybody else who engages in that kind of behavior, it makes everything feel so urgent,
Urgent. Oh.
and it has to be. We have to solve it now. We must get done with it now.
Mhm.
And but it's impossible. Um, it's just not good. You've got to get away from it. And so I recommend saying to the other person, if you're witnessing it or you're experiencing it, of saying, I'm not feeling well, I need to leave for a while, I'm coming back though, and then going away, so that you don't get stuck in a cycle
And when
of,
you say going away,
overthinking.
you just mean out the
Getting
door
out.
for a walk down the street
Yeah,
or
just to get away from the stimulation, and to get so that you can refocus your body. A walk is a perfect thing to do, because when you're outside and you're in nature, your body picks up where you are and it responds to it real positively, because we were hunters and gatherers for 98% of the existence of Homo sapiens, and so this living in cities in the way that we do now is relatively new. And when we go out into nature, it stimulates those memories that go back for thousands of generations, where we found so much peace and comfort in being in nature most of the time. And you mentioned another word before you go on, and that's the importance of being safe.
safe.
Yeah. Safety is the number one most critical experience that people need in a home. They must feel safe. If a person does not feel safe, then you know what happens?
Their walls go up.
The wall of protection goes up. Most people refer to that as defense, but defense is a
Right.
negative word. If you were to say to me, Bryan, I think you're being defensive, then I wouldn't take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Not at all. And so I don't want to say that anybody is defensive, like in a Freudian sense of the word, because it's a natural thing that happens when the wall goes up. It's self-protection. And survival is the most primitive and the most important experience for people to have. And so we have to survive. We have to survive for the well-being of our children and for the people around us. Our survival is necessary. And so being safe is a fundamental key. And you must have safety at home. If you don't have safety at home, it's time to dig deep and find out what you can do to make things safe again. And I can tell you what you can do. Can I tell you real quick?
Sure.
Become a loving, kind person.
Well, I think that plays a huge part
Yeah,
in
it's
feeling
humongous.
safe.
Yeah.
So, I'm wondering if there's a story that you want to share.
About the incident they had with the bear.
Yes. I think that's a story that a
Well,
lot of people can relate
I
to.
know this is going to sound really strange to you at this particular time, but I think I want to have our audience read about it,
Okay. Well,
and
that'll
instead of me tell that story, because it's a phenomenal story, and what it does is it illustrates the importance of being safe at home.
so then we'll go on to the thought about we control our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions.
Mhm.
So do you want to expand on that?
So all of those things. Well, first of all,
What is a thought,
what is a
Bryan?
thought? That's the big question. And I guarantee you that if you're in a room full of people and you ask for a definition of what a thought is, that it's going to be really difficult for people to come up with an answer. The only thing I can compare that to is sometimes when I am doing a funeral service for people, and I talk about Moses going up onto a mountain and getting a certain number of commandments from God to bring down to the people. And do you know how many commandments?
I do.
How many commandments were there?
10.
There were on 2 tablets, and there were 10 commandments. Okay. And I tell them about when Jesus was sitting with his disciples and he gave them a commandment also. Do you know how many he gave at that particular time?
One
There was
commandment.
1 commandment. So we talk about 10 commandments. And then I play a game with them. And I say, would somebody please, from the congregation, please stand and recite the 10 commandments?
And you probably don't get any
You
takers
don't get any takers for that.
because they probably could do 5 or 6,
They could.
but
Yeah.
all 10.
Yeah. But you know the real reason why they don't do it? They don't feel safe.
Well, that makes sense too.
Yeah. But so a thought, even like people who have a difficult time trying uh, to remember or to recite the 10 Commandments, a thought is something that a lot of people can't do. They can't say, what is a thought? But a thought is a biological process that happens in our brains. It's a combination of 4 things, Jennifer: brain cells, brain chemicals, and electric impulses, which are called action potentials. And the 4th part is in relationship with your immediate environment. So your environment, you pick up signals, and those signals are automatically transferred to your brain, where you can formulate a thought about what's happening. Your first thought: is it safe? Is it safe, or do I need to be in a heightened state of alert to protect myself? So, but it's simply biology. And what's phenomenal about that is that people don't understand that it's just biology. There's no good, there's no bad that's associated with any thought, except the morality that people place on it from because of their background or their culture. They make judgments based on their culture, but those judgments are not related to what a thought is. It's simply the combination of brain cells, brain chemicals called neurotransmitters, and action potential or electric impulses in relationship with the environment.
Wow.
I know. Now, if you knew that, then it would make a huge difference in the way that you respond to people. Because if somebody were to say to you a thought that they have and it's bad or it's negative, you can say to yourself, "That's interesting. I wonder what made that negative thought happen. Where did that come from? How did that come into existence?" Rather than thinking, that person just thought something bad about me. I don't like them anymore. See that? You see that big difference?
Well, there's a huge difference. And I think oftentimes, if you take the first approach, is I wonder where that came from. There may be so much more that's happening in that person's life that we aren't aware of that could influence that thought, and that's why they spoke it,
You know what
right?
else I've discovered, though, and I think that this is a good time to mention it also, is that thoughts that are under the influence of alcohol are not reliable.
Oh, I
and
totally agree
and
with that.
people do not have control. Now there's trillions of action potentials, brain activity that's going on in your mind, trillions of them, and for some of them to coalesce and come together and form something you might recognize as a thought. Well, you're just not going to speak the first thing that comes out of your mouth. This goes back to our section on system 1 and system 2 thinking.
Mhm.
But if you're under the influence of alcohol, you have great difficulty in controlling what comes out of your mouth. And so terrible things may come out of your mouth that you have no intention of saying or that you really don't believe. But because of the influence of alcohol in the process, you've lost control. And for me, the most important thing that you can have in your life is control. Controlling your thinking, controlling your words, and controlling your actions.
So a lot of people would say that those are really difficult things.
It's, you know what it is? It's habit. It's a learned process. You've trained your brain to respond and under certain circumstances to respond in certain ways. All that you have to do is retrain yourself. Now, I'm not saying that's easy because, I've been working on it for a long, long time. And I still have trillions of thoughts and I still need to sort them out. And I have to be careful about what I speak and what I say. And sometimes it's still challenging, but I know what's going on. And because I know what's going on, I can step back, I can take a deep breath, I can engage in my breathing exercise, I can regain control, and I can move forward. Oxytocin is a powerful brain chemical also. And it's something that we want to be able to utilize and to develop in a relationship. Because when we're in a relationship, I want to talk about relationship, but before I talk about relationship, I'm going to talk about our own personal growth.
Okay.
My own personal growth depends on me having healthy relationships. And the same thing is true in my family. My successful family life depends upon me having healthy relationships. That means what I can do to help foster good feeling is to actually foster oxytocin. Did you know there's a nasal spray that you can get and you can spray oxytocin
I
up your
didn't know
nose?
that.
Yeah. But don't do that. You don't need to do that. There's much simpler and better ways to stimulate oxytocin. And loving kind thoughts is one of them. And loving kind actions, words is another one. And loving kind actions is another one. Especially touch.
Well, I was going to say, I know that oftentimes when someone is stressed, one, being present with them, but if it's someone you're able to reach out and put your hand on, or hold their hand, or give them a hug, that can really help them through that moment. I know oftentimes when someone's going through a great deal of pain, of whatever, that I will ask if I can hug them. And as I do, I say, I'm giving you all my strength. And there have been times where people say, I can actually feel it changing in me. And so that's really cool, that touch, that oxytocin that can even flow from one person by making me feel close to that person, to them.
I'm a Christian, and in my training and upbringing, I learned about laying on of hands and how effective that was. And in our particular denomination, there was an opportunity during our religious services for people to, if they felt like they needed prayer, or if they had a need for healing or something like that, that they could come down and we could engage in that ritual, which is very casual, but nevertheless, it's still a ritual of laying hands on somebody. And those people could actually feel something happening in their body. And that's a complicated and it's a beautiful process. And we can do that with each other. And it doesn't have to be a church experience. It doesn't have to be a Christian experience at all. All that is being a human and being able to take and to use the tools that we know that we have and that we can impart to others. We use those to help them feel better about themselves and the people that they're with. And that's why that oxytocin touch is so wonderful and so powerful. Do you remember when we went to marriage therapy?
I do.
Yes, we had a crisis, and so we were really smart, and we went and we spoke to a counselor.
I don't know if we were really smart.
Yes, we were. We were
I think
very smart.
you were really smart, and I was willing to follow.
Yes. Well, even our kids went.
Yeah.
And there was one session where the therapist said to you, he said, Jennifer, I'd like you to sit in Bryan's lap for 5 minutes.
Every day.
Every day. Now, when I heard that, I was shocked because I'm trained as a psychotherapist. And I was shocked that he would want an unwanted touch to happen in the relationship, because you weren't in a place where you wanted to sit in my lap.
No.
I mean, it wasn't a safe thing for you to do. That's not what you wanted to do. But under the guidance of a skilled therapist who gave you that idea, you were willing to do that. And I think that your willingness to sit in my lap helped to stimulate. No, I don't think that. I am aware, I know that your willingness to sit in my lap for that 5 minutes a day until our next meeting was critical in stimulating oxytocin in our relationship and helping us to reconnect again.
Well, and it was all done very scientifically.
And so, yeah, so that was the way that you thought about it. Okay, well, I'm just doing this for science.
That's
sake.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's so interesting how science has discovered that there's so many beautiful connections and so many ways that people interact with each other that are helpful and beneficial. And that was one of them.
So are you ready to talk about via negativa?
Yes, because that's a great transition, because up to this particular point, we've been talking about all the good things. But I'm glad this is one of the most important parts of the entire book, is The via negativa means to eliminate something for gain.
Right.
So it's gaining by negation. Okay, so that's what via negativa is, and it's also something. It's a technique that's used by Orthodox churches in wanting to understand or to know God better, because what they'll do is that they'll pray, they'll contemplate, and they'll think about what God is not. And by removing those things about what God is not, then they have a better understanding about what God is. And so I use that as a metaphor for helping people to eliminate 100% of negativity from their lives. And I'm talking specifically about eliminating negativity from your thinking, 100%, eliminating 100% of the negative words in your life, and eliminate 100% of the negative actions in your life. Even passive aggressive actions are negative. And those things need to be, if you're not aware that that's happening in your life, you can become aware of it and you can stop it.
I think oftentimes when you say you can become aware of it, I think a lot of people aren't aware that what they do is negative, or what they say is negative, or what they think is negative.
By reading this book, people can become aware. The idea is to, as you read this book, is for you to increase your awareness of your thinking and your words and your actions.
You know, this morning we were talking, and I was sharing with you how I had become aware that oftentimes my response to you comes across negative. And that what I realized is it oftentimes isn't that I'm upset with you, it's that I'm upset with my inability to articulate what I want to say correctly. And so then when you repeat it back, I kind of act frustrated, you know? Well, that's for me an area of negativity that I want to cut out of my life. I want to not think negative of me for not being able to articulate clearly what I want, but also I don't want it to come across to you that I'm thinking a negative thought about you. So this is something that I think is a constant growth, personal growth in each of our lives, is that yes, we might master something at one time, but sometimes those things come back and we have to remaster them. Or maybe it's a new area in our life that we're made aware of and that we can start working towards.
So that's called personal growth. And that's a beautiful example. If people were aware enough to realize that what they're saying, they're not comfortable with it for some reason or another, or that it's not because of the other person, it's their own reaction, their own feeling. They have to own it themselves. If they can own that, then that's an opportunity for growth. And it's a mega opportunity for growth. Because then we're going to ask ourselves, when somebody says something to us and it makes us feel defensive, I'm not going to be thinking what the person just said. It's not that what that person said that made me feel defensive. What was it in my mind? What was it in my thoughts that made me perceive that as being something that was negative? Even if it was intentionally negative, if it had an impact on me that was negative, am I aware of it? And what is it about it that makes me respond so negatively about it? Why can't I just acknowledge that the person said something that may be negative and not think anything about me, but I wonder what's going on in that person to make them say something like that? So it's beautiful because that personal growth that you're experiencing is taking It's taking and making the situation not about you. But what you're doing is that you're honoring the other person. We're going to get into that in a few minutes. You're honoring the other person by taking responsibility for your own feelings.
And the way my feelings are presented.
Yes. And by the way, feelings and thoughts and emotions are all biological process. And they're biological process that your body has learned how to recognize as being angry or depressed or negative or something like that. So it's a fantastic growth experience when you have that kind of feeling. I have those feelings. I am aware when somebody says something and it does something to me. Oh, what's that all about? Not what's the matter with them, but what's that all about for me? I don't need to have that kind of a reaction. What's that mean? And that's real growth. Of negative words. I thought about taking the time to go over the whole thing, but I think that what we ought to do, Jennifer, is just invite the listener to get the book and to read it for themselves, to see, how many of those they actually engage in. I wrote that list, and it's not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, because they're the ones that I can resonate with,
Mm-hmm.
both in my personal experience of being negative, and also in what I've observed in other people as well.
One of the ones you wrote here, I think that stands out for me is failing to understand is not negative. So if I don't understand, that's not negative, but not caring is.
Yeah.
And so sometimes in the rush, it's easy to say, I don't care what you meant, and move on.
Yeah.
And that could be construed as uncaring. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing I wanted to talk about is honoring the other's differentiated self. That's a whole mouthful right there.
Yes, it is. And thank you for teaching me this. This all came about because of your growth as a human being. I discovered, well, what it says in the book is that we had a symbiotic relationship. I mean, you couldn't distinguish Bryan from Jennifer. Even my hair was long then.
Mine is longer.
That's true. And that was so beautiful to me. I mean, it was like, felt so natural and felt so lovely. But the problem with symbiotic relationships is that they're actually two people, and those individuals have their own set of gifts and skills and talents and tools. And so while you were either at work or at home with children, and I was off at school learning more and more things, we had the opportunity to individuate. And what I mean by that is that we grew out of our symbiotic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And how that happened for me was really threatening, because I discovered that you have, wow, amazing gifts and skills and talents, and the tools that you use in your life. And it was so profound for me that I realized that you really didn't need me, that you could live your life. You could live a really beautiful and a happy and a productive life without me or without my help. And when I realized that, I had a loss, and because I lost the symbiotic nature of our relationship, which was so pleasing and good to me. Back in those days, we were very, very conservative, and in a church group and everything else. And it was like the man was the head of the house, and the man ruled, and the women were little women, and they took care of this and that. And thank you, because you saved me from that. That's a terrible, terrible way to live. And when I was able to honor your differentiated self, I experienced so much personal growth in that, because I discovered I had my own gifts and skills and talents. And so it was just beautiful. And I was able to let you go. The Buddhists have a word called attachment, and there's a whole psychology of attachment now also, about how attachment is the cause of much suffering in the world. And as much as I loved our symbiotic relationship, it was creating suffering among us. And as I was able to slowly but surely let go of you and realize that you weren't a possession of mine, and that we had a natural relationship, was wonderful and good, but that each of us had our own unique gifts and skills and talents, that's when I discovered what real life was about.
Well, I think at that point, we were very much caught up into a culture, and it was the culture that really reinforced that, I think, symbiotic relationship. And as we grew and realized that that isn't the only way to live, that it's, I'm going to say this, that it was put upon by that culture, that there were other things to consider. And I think that the natural reality became more prevalent in our life.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It was social reality in the form of culture that was shaping our beliefs and our thoughts about our world, and we were not aware of it. And neither are most of the readers and most of the listeners. They do not understand just how powerful that is. Next week, we're going to discover that, though, because we're going to be getting into the V, which is the victory over life problems. And we're going to actually introduce the home model. And so we'll be able to talk a little bit more about how that works. But this whole idea of honoring your differentiated self, the other's differentiated self, was a phenomenal, new, and a fabulous idea for me that has helped me a whole lot. Now I try to avoid being attached to anybody. Now I like friendships, and I feel like I can be connected with friendships. But when I say attached, I mean I'm not overly influenced by them, to where I measure myself by them or by any other means. But I'm able to recognize them as having their own giftedness, and I'm able to honor that as well. And when there's a social rub, because there will always be a social rub, because socialization, society, um, social reality is so powerful that it's going to be an ongoing thing in our lives. There's nothing, and all that we have is the opportunity to grow through it. Sorry, I got off on that.
No, I think that's important. And as you were talking, I was thinking about how you one time shared with me that um, that we want to differentiate, we don't want to individuate. Did I
Right.
say that right?
Yes. Well, individuation is a process that's blessed by social reality, because what social reality does. Social reality sets standards by which you must follow. And so, if you're going to achieve, and everybody is motivated to achieve, and the failure to achieve is like failing in life. So you don't want to do that.
No.
And so you want to, and in so many different realms, there's achievements. We need to achieve this, achieve that, achieve the other thing. And that is what drives so many people, is to be like that. People even get their identity from their occupation or their job or the things that they do, rather than getting their identity from who they are as a human being.
Well, and I think what you shared with me was that when we individuate, we kind of move ourselves away from people. We're our individual self. This is who we are. Whether it's I'm I'm Jennifer, the realtor. That's it. But when we differentiate, we use that skill to help our community. So we're not pulling away when we differentiate, we're pulling in by using our gifts, our skills, our talents, and tools for the good of ourselves and for the good of the community.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So individuation is, just being by yourself and being achiever and having done something and being recognized as a person. But but when you're differentiated, it's your gifts and your skills and your talents that set you apart. And your gifts and your skills and your talents are for the benefit of other people and for yourself.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of times I hear people say, "Oh, that's a broken person," or "You're broken."
I know. We hear that a lot, don't we?
We really do.
Yeah.
And that somehow limits a
Do
person.
you know what, I think what they really mean is that person isn't socialized correctly.
Hmm.
They don't measure up to what's the society's standards for what it means to be a member of society or a member of the culture. And so there must be something wrong with them.
And so that's a thought that,
Well, here's the thing is that I don't think that that's the case. I don't think there's anything wrong with just about everybody, unless there's some kind of a traumatic brain injury or something that has terribly affected a person's brain severely. It's just that's just not the case. People are, as we have observed in the number one fundamental observation, freaking amazing miracles of astronomical proportions. And we all have brains. They all work relatively much the same way, and they all have meaning and significance in life. But yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
so use your gift to help others. So do you want to talk about that?
Well, I just did, and I will say it again. Everybody has a gift. The best and the highest gift that you can ever have is helping other people. Now, that takes on shape a lot of different shapes and a lot of different forms. So I have a friend who does hair for women. That's a fabulous gift. What she's doing is she's making people feel better about themselves. She's touching them, and in the process, she's exchanging oxytocin with them. And what she's doing is that when they leave, they're leaving feeling better about their lives and themselves. I think that's a beautiful gift.
That truly is.
I also know a person who is a surgeon, and that person has had tons and tons of training, years and years and years of it, and has a really neat way of helping people. But it's not what he's achieved in life. Having a degree that says MD is nice. That's really great. But it's the practice of medicine that's so important. It's actually sitting down with people and giving them attention and listening to what's going on with them, listening to their heart, taking a picture of their, looking at a picture of their x-rays, talking with them. That's helping people. It's all helping people. And if you're a helper, that's the highest thing you could ever be in humanity.
And really what we all can be.
Everybody can be that. Yeah. And you can be happy about your helping position. The other day, we went out to breakfast, and at the table sitting next to us were the family that run the local dry cleaners. And everybody at our table recognized them. and saw that. Those are the people who own the dry cleaning. We're so thankful for them because they can take the clothes that we can't and they can do something good with it. They make a meaningful and significant contribution in our community.
That's really cool. And thank you for remembering that.
Mm-hmm.
So the next paragraphs are about pleasuring acts. Do you want
Just want to say very briefly that this is a really great chapter, and I hope people read this because pleasuring is something that happens all the time, 24 hours a day. It's not something that's reserved for the bedroom. And my goal in life, my number one goal in life, can I tell people what this is?
You can.
My number one goal in life is to be a constant source of delight for you. And when I do that, I'm having a fantastic impact in my family and in my community. And when I do that, my children see what it's like to have a really great relationship and how you can have one. And my grandchildren see it also. And so by me being a constant source of delight for you, which is pleasuring, you like it when I am a constant source of delight for you. What I'm actually doing is that I'm receiving benefit from it myself. And it's a good and it's a wholesome way. It's not contrived. It's who I am. I am a loving, kind person. And so all that I'm doing is I'm just simply being a loving, kind person to you by making sure that I am a constant source of delight for you. And here's the trick. If I can be a constant source of delight for you, then I can be a constant source of delight for anybody in any setting at any particular time. And do you think that's going to make a difference in somebody's life?
It definitely will.
Unbelievable. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the pleasure. But that's a really good chapter. That's a really wonderful chapter.
Well, I think that that's where we end for today.
Okay. Next
And
week,
we're going to talk about the V,
which is
victory over problems.
victory over problems. And that's going to be an exciting thing. Do you know anybody who has any problems?
None.
That does it for today. Thanks again for joining us for Powerful Loving Kindness Naturally. And I think that you can see how powerful loving kindness really is and what happens when we can tap into it naturally. So we'll look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Bryan Martin.
And I'm Jennifer.
It's been a pleasure to be with you.